All right, and welcome into the next edition of the Vegas Squares podcast, the second edition of our Picks and Chatter podcast, where we give you our picks for the weekend in sports. This weekend, actually, is the first of our Picks and Chatter podcast, where we're going to be doing both college football and the NFL. We're going to have Spike on later in the episode because he knows nothing about college football, so virtually his input for the first half of the show would be largely irrelevant. So we'll let him get some sleep. He'll sleep in a little bit this morning, and we'll get in touch with him a little bit later. But Token Tony and I are going to talk about college football here in the first half of the episode. I'd say last week, Token, wasn't too terrible in our picks. I went 4-1. I didn't keep track of your picks. But how did you do last week?
For what I actually had in action, I did pretty well. My big two were the over in the Appalachian State Penn State game, and of course I took Notre Dame outright right before kickoff at plus 135 on the money line.
Yeah, I found myself. I gotta stop doing this. I've learned something. Well, I've noticed it a lot of different seasons when I bet, but I've learned that I can kind of talk myself into not liking a team or liking a team, but not having any interest in betting them. And then for whatever reason, on that Saturday or whatever day that day may be that they play, I somehow talk myself into betting them. And that team last week was Tennessee. We talked about them.
Oh yeah,
we talked about
that was my big bust.
Yeah, we talked about them last week on the first Picks and Chatter podcast, and I even said, I'm like, I like the 9.5, but I'm going to stay away from this even if I need to chase money. And for whatever reason, somehow I put them. Attached them into my bets when I was already 3-1 for the day, with Western Kentucky among other teams. I mean, the only game I really got crushed in was FAU, which they just never showed up, which Lane Kiffin said they had no shot at winning, and I probably should have listened to him. I thought maybe he was just being a little cocky. But it capped off with Monday night, the Florida State. Thank God Florida State didn't score any offense so I could keep the under. Jesus, they looked terrible.
Yeah.
Florida State, Virginia Tech going under 55.5. So if I leave Tennessee out, it's actually a 4-1 weekend of the games I actually gave you on the podcast. But for whatever reason, I don't know if it's pride or if it's, I think I'm, when you start getting like, I don't want to say when you feel like you're invincible, because I was hitting almost everything with the exception of FAU. I mean, I was hitting preseason football games. I was hitting college football games, and I guess I felt a little cocky, and then I bet a bet that I really never really intended to lay on, because I didn't really like the 9.5, but at the same time, I even did the same thing with Illinois too. I mean, they were minus 16. I thought they were going to run and cruise to a victory over Kent State, and ended up turning what should have been a good weekend into a small victory, which doesn't feel very good.
I mean, a small victory is still all right, but I mean, it's kind of kicking the nuts when you we're doing so well until then.
Yeah, I mean, there's a large difference between lose, and then hit a big guy to get you back to even. That feels like a win. But win, and then lay a little more than you should on a game you weren't confident in and crush some of your profits. It's hard to make a profit in this in sports betting. So when you book it, sometimes just leave that other game alone. But I intended on watching it, so I had to have action on it. So, anyways, well, it's a new week here now. Like I said, Spike will be on later to talk NFL with us. And we're going to talk about some of the big games. And I have a few picks up my sleeve this week. And I know you have a whole board full of picks. I know you got about 5 or 6 picks. I got about 5 picks myself. We'll talk about our picks a little later. Let's preview some of the games that are probably one of the ones that we're going to want to watch, this Saturday that we aren't betting on. There's a couple games. We'll start off with Georgia and South Carolina. South Carolina, they're at South Carolina. Georgia's opening up as a 10-point favorite, still currently 10 points. This game is on Saturday at 12:30 Pacific. Initial thoughts: UGA last week won 45-0. against scrub Austin Peay. And then I know South Carolina won their game pretty handily against Coastal Carolina. For me, for the defending, the runner-up in the playoff last year, this seems like, 10 points is a low spread. But, what do you see in this game?
Well, it's at South Carolina. South Carolina doesn't look too shabby in my mind. Trends are with the Bulldogs. I mean, they're 4-0 against the spread the last 4 games, following a straight-up win. 9-2 against the spread, with a straight-up win of 20 or more points. Everything's looking like it's going to be Georgia covering.
Yeah, I mean that's where I see too. I mean the last 11 conference games, South Carolina is 7-1-3 against the spread. Last Saturday against Coastal Carolina, they accumulated more than 450 total yards. When they do that in the previous game, the next game they're 6-1-2 against the spread. 6-2-2 overall last 10. I don't want to write the Gamecocks off just yet, but you're right. A lot of the different trends are looking towards the Bulldogs. They're 4-1 ATS in the last 5 after following a against the spread loss, which they did against Austin Peay because they were a 47.5 point favorite and they only won 45-0, which that's kind of a nail in the heart right there. If you were betting, Bulldog backers last week. What about?
Yeah.
We have. There's a pretty weird total in this one, in my opinion, because two teams that play really solid defense. For this, to be 56 seems like a really high total. My initial gut feeling would play the under on this one.
Yeah, I would lean towards that as well. It seems kind of like a trap total in my mind. I see it's going up. It opened at 54, currently at 56. It's something that I wouldn't feel confident in betting, but if I bet it, I'd probably take the under on this situation.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm leaning Gamecocks in the under on this one. I'll take the 10 points. I think it's going to be a close matchup. I think the Gamecocks ultimately will fall. But I lean Gamecocks in this one.
I would take Georgia in this one, but again, I don't feel too confident in my pick. So
let's take a look at another top 25 team in action early on Saturday, and that's Wisconsin. They played Western Kentucky last week, and I gave you out that Western Kentucky pick. They got another high spread here, 34.5 currently against the University of New Mexico. So it's kind of I'm not sure about this one either. It's another high spread, with a team who is 1-0. It's a number that kind of sits right around the number that I think they could win by is, 35 points, 31 points. I can see them kind of not putting all their eggs in trying to run over University of Mexico. But at the same time, Wisconsin's a team with the ground game who could legitimately put up, 70 or 80 in any given game. So your initial thoughts on this?
I would lay the favorite in this. I think Wisconsin just tears through New Mexico.
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning to as well right now, because I feel like on national TV they didn't cover, which shows, lack of faith in Wisconsin for bettors, for casual bettors. Badgers' last 5 games are 5-0 against the spread, following against the spread loss, which again was last week against Western Kentucky. Playing the Mountain West, they are 3-0-1 last 4, so they have not lost against the spread against the Mountain West in the last few games. Nothing really favors the Lobos as far as trends go. They're 4-1 against the spread after allowing more than 280 passing in their last game. So everything else really dictates that they're not very good, following each individual trend. 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 games after a win of more than 20 points, which happened last week. 1-4 against the spread their last 5 games following a straight up win just in general. So, their last 6 non-conference games are 1-5. So nothing really favors the Lobos here. I don't know if they even have any firepower to really compete with Wisconsin's ground game. Yeah, I'm with you. I think 5 touchdowns plus is going to be right here. Not one I'm betting. But at the same time, I like Wisconsin in this game as well.
Yeah, I'll probably end up laying a little cheddar on this game, but not a heap sum of it. So
yeah, let's take a look down the line. There's a couple more games I know that we don't have as our picks, which we'll give you our money picks later. Notre Dame, another top 25 team in action. They're another 34.5 point favorite. They opened up at 37 and have actually gone down. Money coming in on Ball State. So that's an interesting one because there hasn't been a lot of betting this weekend where the favorites have gone that far down. I mean, it's 2.5 points, 3 points, depending on where you get it. Ball State 8-1 last 9 conference games against the spread. 7-1 against the spread against independent teams in their last 8 games. Last September games, 11 September games, Cardinals are 9-2 against the spread. Fighting Irish 4-0 last 4 September games against the spread. 5-1 last 6 following an ATS win, and 5-1 ATS in their last 6 against a team with a winning road record. So, kind of split down the middle here. A 34.5 point spread seems pretty high, but what are your thoughts?
I kind of like Ball State in this game, the 34.5 or 35.5, whatever you said. I just believe Notre Dame's good, but I don't think they're going to be able to cover that much. I think it'll be closer to maybe like a 3 or 4 touchdown game.
Yeah, I actually like Ball State to keep it close here as well. I think I can't speak for the team or Brian Kelly, but I want to say that this team's probably a little riding high after a big win against Michigan. Sometimes you tend to overlook, a team that's right in front of you when you've got so much going on with a lot of, bigger teams. Ball State's, not a slouch. They could come in here and do some damage. I think you're right. I think a 20-point victory or around that area for Notre Dame could be in the cards. So I like Ball State as well. So I'll take the 35 points, or hopefully maybe it'll go back up before Saturday's kickoff at 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. All right, let's talk about another couple of games that I know, we don't have on our dockets, but they're going to be eyeballs on them. Rutgers at Ohio State. We have the second game of Urban Meyer's suspension for 3 games. Another team that really shouldn't give too much of a problem to Ohio State. The line currently is at 34.5, opened up at 33, so we've jumped up 1.5 points at this point. Over under 63 currently at this point. Rutgers definitely, handled the first opponent they had. Obviously we know about Ohio State's drubbing of Oregon State. Concern we had was that they gave up 31 points. What do you lean towards on a game like this when, again, they don't have their coach for the second straight week?
I don't know. I think I'm going to lean towards Ohio State covering and the over. Yeah. I believe it's going to be high impact, high scoring, just kind of like a 60-20 kind of game.
Yeah, that could be an area where it's kind of a weird number again. 5 touchdowns. They had no problem against Oregon State. I would imagine Rutgers is a similar team to Oregon State. The over probably sounds like a good play here, 63. I expect Rutgers to be able to put up 17-20 of their own. So I think Ohio State's good for 50 in that spot. So I don't know if I'd touch the spread right there. I do like the over like you as well. So that would be a play if you're feeling frisky to jump into, is the over on that one. Let's talk about Washington. They're playing North Dakota. Couple issues. Washington, their offensive tackle still out. It was injured in practice, Trey Adams, prior to the opener, and could miss the entire season. Also, they lost, I forget the name of the guy, the safety for Washington is out for the year as well. So guys are kind of going down for Washington right now. Does that mean anything really against a team like North Dakota, who comes in. Let me catch the spread here. It is. It's off. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's currently off.
Well, then forget I said anything. Let's just say Washington's going to win that, and it really doesn't matter by how much. I looked at against the spread. I thought I saw a number, but I was incorrect on that, on my judgment. So I'll bite the bullet for that one. A lot of these weeks, I'm looking down at these, trying to find games to pick really, and it's a lot of the spreads are off. So I mean, what do you make of that?
Yeah.
When a book's really, not giving you any kind of odds, in a week where they make you they're forcing you to kind of pick from a more limited number of games.
Yeah, it seems like they're kind of worried about these lesser kind of teams in a way. Like the Savannah State Miami game is one that I see is off as well.
Yeah, you got West Virginia, Youngstown State is off. You got the Washington game, which I said, the UCF South Carolina State game is off. You even have games like Eastern Kentucky at Marshall. There's no spread on that one either. And for a team that won last week, they did not cover the spread. But you got a Middle Tennessee State versus Tennessee Martin. That game's off. I mean, yeah, you're right. LSU, the game's off. Louisville, the game's off. Troy, the game's off. I mean, I can go down the line here. Louisiana Tech, who in some polls is the top 25 team. We do have a game that has a spread though down here. Florida State's off as well, but we do have Clemson at Texas A&M. This is supposed to be the game of the week, if you will. That's where game day will be. Clemson is currently a 12-point favorite in this spot. They opened up at 13.5. It's been bet down. My initial thoughts is, it's hard for me to trust Jimbo at this moment with this new team. The Clemson Tigers are firing on all cylinders. Initial thoughts are that Clemson rolls, but, Texas A&M might have a little bit of a home field advantage when it comes to, being in Kyle Field. 12.5 or 12 points is a lot to lay on the road in a primetime game. I don't know if I can lay 12 points. I'm definitely not going to be on this game for sure, but fuck it. Give me the Tigers. Give me the Tigers on the road, like 31-14 or something like that.
Yeah, I'd probably lean towards Clemson as well. I'm looking at the trends. I mean, it's virtually about the same. I mean, the Aggies are a little weaker on their trends, but I mean, they still have some hot trends. Like they're 4-1 on the last 5 games on grass, 4-0 in their last 4 non-conference games. Tigers are 8-2 in their last 10 non-conference games. So I don't know. I like the Tigers more in this spot.
Yeah, I think they got the better team overall. The question I really have is, I've never seen this, and maybe you have in a college football game, is both teams operating with a 2-quarterback system, which I know is your favorite in the NFL. You got Kelly Bryant and Trevor Lawrence at Clemson, who, many people are wondering why Kelly Bryant is having to split time, but Trevor Lawrence, the freshman, led the team to points in all 5 drives last week. Texas A&M has Nick Starkel and Kellen Mond. Both were effective last week. I played Missouri State or somebody and beat them pretty badly. Same with Clemson. I think they beat like Furman or something like that. It's just, I've never seen anything like that where both teams have a 2-quarterback process going on. I don't know if either team's effectively trying to find a starting quarterback, or if both teams just think this is the way to go throughout the course of the season.
Could be the new norm.
I doubt that. I mean, we've talked about, when 2-quarterback systems are successful. I think it's been done once, and that's Tebow and Leak. No other 2-quarterback system in the NCAA really has been a strong, offensive, game plan for a team.
Yeah, fair point. Until now.
until Saturday. I think I laid Clemson this early in the season. Maybe later in the season I I'd lean more towards Texas A&M in that spot. But yeah, early in the season, I think Clemson still pretty much a similar team from the team that made the playoff last year. I'd be more inclined to take them this early in the season. So yeah, I think we're on the same page with that one. So yeah, we got another Auburn's off the board. We got Florida. They play in Kentucky. I think they've beat them 400 straight years or something like that, give or take.
Something like that, yeah.
The line currently is 13.5 in favor of Florida. 51 is the current over/under. Effectively, it's a 2-touchdown favorite, in the swamp. Florida just got into the top 25. I'm sure that Dan Mullen wants to stay in there after they beat Charleston Southern 53-6. And, the Wildcats won their first game 35-20 over Central Michigan. The last loss, I was just looking at the trends and extra stuff. The last loss to the Wildcats was 11,620 days ago.
Jeez.
That I don't even want to do the math, but I feel like that's like 30 years.
Almost 4 years. Yeah, 3.5 years or so.
Holy cow. That's just crazy.
Insane.
Not a lot favors the Gators going into this game other than the fact that they have beat the Wildcats, many decades for the last many decades in a row, which that's still crazy. I don't care. Beating one team that many times is still pretty impressive no matter who you are. Couple things going for the Wildcats here. 7-3 against the spread last 10 road games. 5-2 against the spread their last 7 road games versus a team with a winning home record. Gators not been great in September, although it's not been under Dan Mullen. They're 2-5 against the spread last 7 games in September, and 2-5 last 7 games overall. 2-6 against the spread after accumulating more than 200 yards rushing in their previous game against Georgia Southern. And a lot of cold trends. 2-9 last 11 following an ATS win. 1-5 last 6 following a straight up win of 20+ points. So not a lot of trends really in either direction. A couple of good trends for Kentucky there. 13.5 points there, Token.
It's a very interesting line. It's right on that magical number. Let me lay the favorite on that one.
Last time these two met, Felipe Franks was on the team. He will be the starting quarterback for Florida. This was September 23rd of 2017. Florida walked away with a 28-27 victory against Kentucky. I'm gonna say that the score stays right around there. 30-29, 31-30. I'm gonna say that UK covers the 13.5 points, and we'll see. I actually may take a peek at that money line and see if there's anything to sprinkle on there. Maybe Kentucky breaks the streak here this year.
Fair enough.
All right, Penn State, your boys who had their buttholes puckered by Appalachian State in week 1, now have to travel to Pitt. They are a 8.5 point favorite right now. Anything you see here with this one?
It's a road game. Penn State looked kind of rough in week 1. They had to go to overtime to win. I had the over in that game, so gave myself a little pat on the back after that one.
All right, we got the Penn State 10-1-1 last 12 after getting 200 yards rushing in the previous game. 9-1-1 ATS in their last 11 after scoring more than 40 in their previous game, which I think they just got over with that last touchdown before the pick in the end zone. Penn State last 14 are 10-2-2 ATS against a team with a winning record. Pittsburgh, obviously we know about them. They've slayed some giants the last few years. Clemson in 1 year, Miami in another year. 4-0 ATS the last 4 against a team with a winning record, which doesn't say a lot. It is a nice streak, but I look for Penn State really to come out and try to, make a statement, because I feel like if they have another close game in the bag, they may start dropping, in the polls here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's time for Penn State to make the statement, and they cover. It's going to be like
I'll say 33-20.
Yeah, I was thinking right around that number.
Yeah, I think Trace McSorley is good enough to get them going. And I think they need a big cover to not slide too far in the polls. All right,
yeah.
Let's look at the last game before we give you our picks. Actually, there's a couple more games here. Stanford and Cal is another one of the big games of the week. Stanford currently sits at a 6-point favorite over under 55.5.
You said Stanford and USC?
Yeah, Stanford and USC. Stanford currently sits at 6-point favorite over under 55.5.
It's a very interesting total.
Take your time.
Yeah.
USC played UNLV last week. Didn't look all that great. Still got the win. They were losing at one point. I don't know if that's a bigger testament to USC being ill prepared, or if that's a testament to UNLV maybe being better this year than they lead on. Stanford had some trouble with San Diego State. They ended up ultimately covering. But they had Bryce Love was held in virtually check last week. So, Trojans 5-1 ATS last 6 against a straight up win of 20 or more points. The Cardinal are 4-0 last 4 against a team with a winning record, and 4-1 in their last 5 home games against the spread. So there's some trends backing both teams. The Trojans, unfortunately, 3-12-1 in their last 16 games against the spread overall. 1-5-1 against their last 7 road games. 1-5-1 last 7 road games versus a team with a winning home record. And 1-5 against the spread in their last, 1-5-1 against the spread in their last 7 true road games, which this will be. So a couple cold streaks, plaguing the Trojans a little bit. I personally think that this game will be close. I'll take USC to cover. Stanford should win the game. I think the game will be somewhere around the 3-point range.
No, I say Stanford covers. They won by a full touchdown and extra point. I'm saying the score is going to be 31-24.
31-24. All right. Well, that'd be right on the over there at that point. So that'd be 55.5. You like I guess you would like the under in that spot, but that's a tough one to bet, especially if you think the score is going to hit right on that number. So.
Yeah. It opened at 53, so whoever got what win is either going to cash out a decent ticket or try and chase.
That's true. All right, let's look at the last of these top 25 games that are, an interesting spread. Herman Edwards in Arizona State is hosting Michigan State, and Michigan State, the Spartans, had a little bit of a scare that first week. Utah State actually had the lead, I believe, with 2 or 3 minutes left in the game. Michigan State is currently a 5-point favorite, total of 54 in this game.
Yes, I'm going with the upset. I believe Arizona State wins this game outright. It's going to be close. They win it by a field goal.
Interesting. You think Arizona State's got the firepower to take down your boys, eh?
I think so. I think Michigan State's got too much on their mindset to come out ahead in this game. So,
yeah, I think D'Antonio, or D'Antonio, however you say his name, probably lit a fire under these boys. this week. Probably weren't too crazy about having that scare tactic placed on them in the first week. Michigan State 6-1 ATS last 7 games following a spread loss. 7-3 ATS the last 10 games after allowing less than 100 rush yards in their previous game. They are 1-5 ATS in their last 6 road games versus a team with a winning home record, which we have in Arizona State. Talk about a team with a winning or losing home record. I mean, we're talking about one game here, so that's a tough. That's not really a direct indicator of a true trend this early in the season. Sun Devils 1-4 last 5 games against the spread after scoring more than 40 in the previous game. 1-5 against the spread last 6 non-conference games, and 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 games that they had a straight up win of 20 or more points the previous week. I think Michigan State, they could fall too far back here if they lose this game. The spread 5 points. I think they get it by 7-10, maybe 7-14 points. I think they'll cover this. I think ASU will give them a dogfight. I think it's somewhere in the the 21-10 range, or with a late backdoor cover touchdown. I think I like the Michigan State with the 5, and I think I'll take the under on that one.
Fair enough.
All right, it's time to take off the strap token. It is time to make your bets. You have 6. I had 5, but I accidentally already gave you 1 in South Carolina. I took South Carolina against UGA, but I do have 4 more picks. So I'll let you start with your first 2 picks that you'll be taking the strap off for.
First 2 picks. The first one I really feel confident about. That is Northwestern Duke game. Duke is going to Northwestern. Line currently 2.5. Give me Northwestern.
Northwestern currently 2.5 in favor of Northwestern.
Yeah.
So you like Northwestern to win this game as well? They had definitely a barn burner against Purdue that last week. They probably should have lost that game, but you like Northwestern to come back and beat Duke as well.
Yes, I think it's time for Northwestern to make that big statement. And Duke looked pretty good this first week, but I think they're a little overvalued. So,
all right, pick number 2.
I like the 2.5 line. Pick 2, going towards my hometown. We're going with Western Michigan and U of M game. Line is currently, what is it now? Currently 27.5. I like the dog in this one. Western Michigan going to Ann Arbor, covering 27.5.
Okay. West Michigan's always had some pretty decent teams, been able to hang with some of the boys.
Yeah. They got a pretty decent sized offensive line, and their secondary defense looks pretty decent. So something to keep in mind.
All right, I'll throw a pick down here. Vandy's currently at a 9-point favorite against Nevada. I like Vanderbilt to cover that against Nevada. A lot of people saw what Nevada did in the first game. They put up, I think, 75 points. Vanderbilt plays really well this year. They actually have a very underrated team. I'm going to take the 9 points, and I'll take Vandy to win that by, 2 touchdowns. All right, who's your next pick?
Next game on my slate is the Oklahoma-UCLA game.
Already?
UCLA traveling a little east to right around the Tornado Alley, and line is currently 30.
Yep.
It's a pretty steep line. UCLA should put up a little more fight than FAU, but I see Oklahoma just steamrolling them. Give me the favorite in that one.
Another steamroll for Oklahoma. Yeah, they got a tough team, man. That team's really good. Even with Baker Mayfield gone, they don't seem like they're really skipping a beat at that point. So, all right. So my pick, I will take. The crazy thing about this is I grabbed it early. Now I'm not 100% confident. I still probably will take it. Kansas State was giving 9 points, or getting 9 points against Mississippi State at home. A Bill Snyder offense and a Bill Snyder team I always like to side with that. Down to 7.5, I don't feel as great about that. This just feels like an upset. They could go in there, or Mississippi State can go in there and get beat by Kansas State. I'll still lay the 7.5 points in this spot. Kansas State, I don't like it as much as I liked the 9 when it opened up, but I'll take the 7.5 as it comes, and Kansas State maybe sprinkle a little bit on the money line there.
Fair enough. My next pick is going a little more north. We're going to Iowa. We're going Iowa State against Iowa. Currently, line is 4. Give me Iowa. I believe in this matchup. Iowa is always good against Iowa State. They win by 2 touchdowns even. Easy cover.
Fair enough. My next game is Arkansas State traveling into Bama after Bama whipped up on Louisville. This is one of those games where they just kind of see what they got. It feels like a little bit of a dress rehearsal. But, Arkansas State's not really a slouch. I mean, they have the ability to, what's the word I'm looking for, to stay close with some teams. Alabama's on a different caliber of level, but Arkansas State 4-1 last 5 games against the spread on grass. A lot of the trends in games like this in September for the Crimson Tide don't really favor them. 1-4 last 5 following a straight up win against the spread. 1-4 against the spread last 5 games after allowing less than 100 yards of previous rushing. The only thing 4-3 against the spread their last 7 games in September. That's not like a fantastic against the spread record. Crimson Tide 1-5 against the spread last 6 games against the team with a winning record. 0-5 last 5 against the spread against the teams from the Sun Belt Conference, which is where Arkansas State currently resides. The Red Wolves have taken a bit of an ATS skid. They are 4-2 overall, but 1-5 against the spread last 6 games. I'm gonna take Arkansas State with the 37 points at this point. I think they lose pretty handedly by 4 touchdowns, but that's not 37 points.
Fair enough. All right, for my last pick, we're going to Minnesota. We got Fresno State against the Golden Gophers. Bulldogs against the Gophers. Line opened up at 3, currently 1.5. I'm going for the upset. Fresno State wins outright.
I think it's a good pick. I didn't have that on my list, but I think Fresno State's a really good team. Minnesota, middle of the road, Big Ten opponent. I don't dislike that pick at all.
Yeah, that's one that I'm hammering a decent chunk on. So,
all right, my last pick, I have Hawaii laying 17 against Rice. The last game of the night starts at midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific. Hawaii is already 2-0 against the spread, 1-0 against the spread at home. Rice did put up a little bit of a fight against Houston. I think they may rest their whole season on the fact that, hey, we were competitive with Houston. They're not a very good team. I think Houston played down to them a lot. And I think Hawaii's going to blow them out. I'll lay the 17. Okay. I'll lay the 17 points. Hell, the over-under 70, Hawaii could get that by themselves. I think Hawaii could get 50 points by themselves, 55 easily. So I'll lay the 17 with Hawaii against Rice. Now, you had one more pick too, didn't you?
No, that was my last one. For Fresno State.
Gotcha. I know you were talking about like in Nebraska. I didn't know if you were putting any money on that one.
No, I'm not currently, but I'm leaning towards it.
Yeah, Nebraska is a weird one. They didn't get to play last week. This is their first week. Of the Scott Frost era. That's much anticipated by both the Nebraska fan base and the UCF fan base, because I wonder really if a lot of UCF fans are rooting for or against Scott Frost. Me, I'm kind of like, he's gone, he's done, let's move on. We got a guy in, who's ready to basically make you forget about him. So it'll be an interesting one, Nebraska and Colorado. It'll be a good game in the Big Ten. Just for shits and giggles, for 3.5 points, Nebraska, who would you, no, nothing on your record here, but Nebraska's a 3.5 point favorite here.
I'd take Nebraska, I think, at home.
I like Colorado for the upset there. So,
Okay.
All right, and let's go ahead and turn our attention to the guys who get paid. Let's talk about the NFL, and Week 1 is upon us. And since Spike offers no additional value to us during NCAA Pick'em, we brought him in for the NFL. What's up, Spike?
You know, I'm glad that you finally realized that I really couldn't care less about college football, so I appreciate you only bringing me in for the sport that matters.
Well, yeah, I mean, we figured, we put the franchise tag on you for college football. You decided not to report, so I guess we'll just get whatever value we can out of you, kind of like Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah.
We'll just sit you until we're ready for you.
Squeeze what you can out of me, and then I'm going to free agency.
There you go. Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's dive into the NFL, and we've got a tasty slate. Let's start with Minnesota and San Francisco, a battle of two quarterbacks that have been talked a lot about this offseason. You have Kirk Cousins' Vikings, who are 6.5-point consensus favorites over Jimmy Garoppolo's 49ers. Game is obviously played in Minnesota. Spike, your initial thoughts just about the game in general?
Well, I thought it was interesting that the game opened at 5 and it's since moved about a point and a half, depending on where you go. For me, San Francisco, while they look improved, still don't have many weapons, but I'm concerned about Cousins being able to gel with his new receivers and running backs and everybody else on the offense this quickly in order to make that much of essentially a touchdown difference in the game.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at that. I mean, the weapons just to themselves, Kirk Cousins is a quality enough quarterback in my mind that, it shouldn't take long to acquiesce with Diggs, Cook, Murray, Thielen, Rudolph, guys like that. What I'm really worried about is, you're right, it opened up at 5, and even before McKinnon's injury, this line has already been bet up a full 1.5 token.
Yeah, that's a pretty big movement, especially for Week 1 in the NFL. I mean, that kind of worries me in this game a little. I mean, in my mind, it's almost at that precious 7 number.
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about numbers. The games usually fall between 3, 7, 10, and 14 points. Those are usually the numbers they fall on at the most. 6.5 always kind of creates that fun spot because, 6 is another number where it generally falls in the second tier of more common score spreads. So the dreaded hook right there can really make a weird difference in terms of this. I mean, which quarterback, guys, do you trust more in this spot with their new team? I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo has never lost a game, but at the same time, has he really been challenged at this point in his career? He's got 7 starts under his belt.
In my mind, it's going to be...
Sorry, that was my fault.
In my mind, yeah.
Token.
Go ahead, Token. Go ahead. All right. In my mind, this is truly going to be his biggest test yet with facing Minnesota's defense, and they're pretty quick. Got decent pass defense and secondary, so I mean, it's going to be a ultimatum for whether he's a truly good quarterback or just kind of like a middle brick in the road quarterback at this point.
Yeah, Spike, Minnesota's got to be chomping at the bit to give Jimmy G his first loss, right?
Oh, of course. And with that defense, they have a very good shot of doing it. I just think that Jimmy getting an extra, half a season under this kind of coordinator, this kind of system, these weapons around him, I think that actually gives him a leg up. I don't know if it's enough to win, but I think that helps him in this battle of the two essentially new quarterbacks to their teams.
Now, Spike, in the beginning of Cousins' career, he was in Washington. Obviously, we know that. But also, Kyle Shanahan was in Washington under his dad. So his playbook was available for Cousins a little bit in the early stages of career. Is there anything Cousins can provide, to the coaching staff or has provided as far as, kind of a game plan or an outline of what Kyle Shanahan may or may not do in this game? Well, to a certain extent, yes, but
I
know that was 5 years ago, but
right. Well, it was 5 years ago, but remember too, Garoppolo has the best pedigree in the world training under Brady, so being able to bring that experience in, I think, still can give Garoppolo an edge on how to adapt and overcome. And if Shanahan is or if Cousins is
giving Minnesota tricks out of Shanahan's playbook, then I think Garoppolo is the kind of guy that can improvise and adjust and make those second half adjustments to get their team close.
Yeah, I think it's going to be it's going to be a weird game. I think San Francisco can keep it close for most of the game. The 6.5 points, like you said, is really a toss up in that window. I think Minnesota's going to win the game. I'll lay the points. I'll take the 6.5. Token, what are you feeling on this one?
This one I don't have a too strong of a feeling, but if I bet it, I would think Minnesota wins by 7. So I would take lay the favorite on this one.
Spike?
Niners plus the points. I don't think the Niners can win outright. I actually do have a pretty big moneyline favorite, moneyline upset that I'm taking this week, but it ain't this one. Give me the 6.5.
All right, let's move on to the next game on the docket here, and that is Tampa Bay and New Orleans. In New Orleans, the consensus line at this point is 9.5 across the board in favor of the Saints. No Jameis Winston. Obviously, this is game 1 of the 3-game suspension. Any initial thoughts? I mean, we have, Drew Brees, with an arsenal of weapons at his disposal, minus Mark Ingram. But, Spike, any initial thoughts on this one?
Well, again, this is another game that's moved quite a bit. To open at 7.5, now 9.5. I might even please this to New Orleans minus 14.5. I'll still take them.
You think it's going to be a blowout, eh?
Yeah, I don't think Tampa Bay has enough, especially without Winston, to even keep this game worth watching, let alone being competitive.
All right, now Token, right?
Yeah.
Fitzpatrick was 2-1 in Winston's absence. I understand they probably played some mediocre teams, but many people think the Bucs are a mediocre team at this point too. So, any chance Fitzpatrick has of doing some damage against the Saints? I mean, the Bucs' track record against the Saints, no matter who really is at quarterback, has been always a history of keeping it close. And the last time these two teams met was in Tampa on New Year's Eve, and Tampa walked away with a 31-24 victory with Fitzpatrick at quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, the Saints were kind of laying low, trying not to get hurt at that time, too, because they were already in the playoffs, too. So,
well, they were in the playoffs.
Yeah, think about that.
They didn't have the division wrapped up quite then either.
Yeah, that's the one thing about it.
So, go ahead.
Oh, no, I think that Fitzpatrick has a not so great game. Drew Brees has a terrific game, throws for 350 plus yards, probably 2-3 touchdown. Kamara probably runs for 150 on top of that. I think the Bucs are blown out in this game.
All right. Well, I'm looking at the trends. Last 3 years, the Bucs are 3-3 against the Saints. Last 3 years, 2 of those wins came in New Orleans. Only one of those wins came in New Orleans. 2 of the wins came in Tampa. But it's interesting to see. I mean, the Tampa Bay Bucs have an improved defense. The offense has a couple of weapons on it. Peyton Barber is really the X factor. If he can control the ground on this Saints defense, I think they have the ability to keep it close. I'm gonna take the 9.5. Actually, I think maybe by Sunday it's gonna get up to 10. So I'm gonna wait it out. If it goes to 9, theoretically, it realistically doesn't matter to me. So I'll wait. I'll take Tampa Bay with the 9.5 or 10 points. I'm not calling for an outright win because I don't think they have the strength for that. I think New Orleans will get anywhere between a 3 to 7 point win in this game. I got to remember it's week 1, so as much as offenses have been in training camp, they haven't actually put a lot of time on the field with each other. And Brees has got a couple new receivers on. He's got Mike Thomas, who he's familiar with, but a lot of the other guys on his team, they've yet to get meshed. So I'm going to take the 9.5. Maybe wait and see if it goes to 10. If it goes down to 9, I'll jump on it. But I think it's going to go up to 10 by the time kickoff. So. Where are we at here? Houston and New England, and I know this is a game. This would be a game, Spike, for your dad to come on on the podcast for. So
yeah, well, he's about as pessimistic as I am on this one. We've got New England with a depleted wide receiver core, especially with Edelman serving that extra suspension. We have sort of a rebuilt offensive line with the departure of Nate Solder. Defense looks better, but with no Matt Patricia, we don't know how they're going to interact and how they're going to kind of gel together against a team with a potential MVP candidate and Deshaun Watson at quarterback. Plus, we can't forget J.J. Watt and Merciless on Houston's defense. So for me, this is I'm obviously going to watch it. I'm obviously a born and bred Patriots fan, but I'm not thrilled with this line, especially with the Pats minus 6.5 right now.
Well, you know what? I'll give you a stock tip. If you guys are looking for a stock price that's going to rise soon, it's whatever remote Spike owns, whatever brand of remote Spike owns. That's the stock. You should, and maybe the Windows too. I'm not sure yet. He may scream loud enough to break a couple. The line is 6.5 consensus across the board. So, you know, I mean, I understand what you're saying, you know, with, you know, a lot of New England's problems, and you highlighted a couple things about Houston, and, you know, obviously these are three guys who, you know, well, I'll at least start with the two defensive guys. Merciless and Watt, when they're healthy, are two of the best at their positions individually. So let's not take that anyway. But I mean, J.J. Watt has played, half a season the last 2 years. Deshaun Watson's coming off a devastating knee injury. And Merciless will be back, 100%. They haven't had a lot of game action, those guys. So I'm a little nervous to take the 6 that everybody seems to be very gung-ho on. I feel like this is a game where everyone's going to start to say, you know, here comes the beginning of the end. And I know some people have said that for a couple of years now, and now they have to bite their tongue because New England's made the last 2 Super Bowls. But, you know, I see a blowout. I see a 14-plus point game here. I think New England at home puts a statement win to the rest of the NFL, says we are here, and they kind of calm the nerves of everyone who is thinking like Spike right now.
Yeah, the in my mind is a good game to put in a teaser, whether it's a 6-point or a 14-point or something. If I had to bet the line as right now, I'd probably take Houston plus the points, though.
Spike, you never gave us your pick.
Yeah, well, this is my underdog money line special of the week. I got Houston, just straight up winning.
Fair enough. Well, he's going to sit there and fade himself, or fade his fandom there.
Right, which, by the way, is going to screw up your stock tip, because if the Patriots do end up losing, then I won't smash a remote, because at least I've made money. I call it the happiness hedge.
Yeah, see, I can't do that with my teams. You know, except for the Super Bowl.
It's hard to root against your team and make money sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one. So good luck to you. I wish you well, and I wish your wife well on having to watch that game with you. But it sounds like you may be a little calmer than most Patriots games this week, so maybe.
Yeah, well, and this is also my puppy's first experience with us watching football at home, so be curious to see how he reacts to all this.
Let's say if you yell, he may pee in the house. He might not figure out what's going on. So, all right. Well, here's let's move on. Here's an interesting one because, well, obviously, if you've not been living under a rock, you've heard that Le'Veon Bell has no desire to play football in Week 1 and possibly beyond for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That being said, they are still a 4-point favorite against Cleveland in Cleveland. Across the board, they are 4 points. You got 3.5 in some spots. This game opened up at 7. I've got to imagine that everybody and their mother, including everybody who I've ever done a fantasy draft with in the last 2 months, has just expected Le'Veon Bell to be in the lineup in Week 1. We've gone from 6.5 opening up to 7.5 in June, and now we're all the way down to 4 here on September 6th. So I'm just going to kind of start with you, Token. It seems like, you know, that's a lot of points for one guy. But at the same time, you know, there's not a lot of guys like Le'Veon Bell. And, you know, everybody's been kind of, you know, Cleveland's their darlings, especially, you know, they're the Hard Knocks guys this year. So initial just kind of ramifications of Bell sitting out and, you know, the potential turmoil that could be brewing in Pittsburgh.
In my mind, I mean, Bell is definitely a high-end back player. I mean, he's averaging 25 to 30 touches per game, whether it's a rush or reception. I mean, that is a lot of points for movement just for one player, though. But in my mind, it seems like the right movement. I don't know. I kind of like Cleveland with Pittsburgh without Bell. That's where I would lean for sure. I think Cleveland's definitely improved, and nobody knows what they're really about. I mean, they could be a dumpster fire like last year, or maybe they could be 6-10 or something like that. I mean, I don't think Cleveland dominates this game, but I think they get enough done to either cover or potentially win by like a field goal. So,
all right, Spike.
That's where my pick is.
Spike, the last 6 for Cleveland against Pittsburgh, no matter where it is, have been L's.
Yeah.
It's in 2017. You have to go back to 2 seasons ago, actually, the 2016 season, but the game was in January of 2017. Has the closest point spread of margin of the last 6 games. That was a 27-24 overtime win for the Steelers. Everything else has covered this 4 points as far as the scores indicate. Last Cleveland win was in 2014 at home, 31-10 against Pittsburgh. But does Le'Veon matter that much? Or, according to the line, the offensive line in their reaction piece yesterday when the media was in the locker room, they said they're ready to roll with James Conner. I mean, they got the weapons on the outside with Brown and Schuster, and they said they like Conner. Now, that may just be shop talk for basically saying, well, we don't really have a fucking choice at this point. But, a lot of people are hitting the panic button on Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I can understand because Bell is such an impact player, and especially because in this day and age of the NFL, we don't see impact workhorse running backs anymore. It's usually running back by committee. So to have a guy like Bell is so valuable, is that kind of guy that they need to protect. But the flip side is they still got Big Ben, they still have Brown, they still have Schuster. I think you're right that the locker room talk was just shop talk, and they're going to say that they're ready to roll with whoever's out there, next man up kind of philosophy. Whether or not they actually have confidence, I don't know. I don't know that it matters. I don't think Pittsburgh breaks a sweat in this game. I'm not worried about the 4 points. I would take them any day.
Yeah, I gotta think. Pittsburgh's a smart franchise token. If they either had to basically put all their eggs in Le'Veon Bell saying, oh, he'll be here, he'll be here, he'll be here, or they really like James Conner, because I think, they would have had to, if they didn't feel confident in James Conner, I have a feeling they would have signed a safety blanket, a veteran running back out there who could, tote the rock, who's got experience toting the rock, some guy, maybe when Adrian Peterson came calling, or Jamal Charles, a guy who kind of is obviously not the same caliber of Le'Veon Bell today, but used to be, and has a chance to maybe recreate some of that. He has the same, running back style with, catching the ball in the backfield and having this. I'm sure the speed's still somewhat there. They just seem to either be fully confident in Conner or fully confident that Bell was going to come back, or both.
I think a kind of mixed reaction of both in this mindset. I believe Conner's definitely ready for this role. Whether he lives up to Bell's standards or not, that's totally up to how he plays and all that. That's not going to fly. Not week 1, but you never know about an impact player such as a running back.
Yeah, Spike.
Maybe he goes out there and does pretty well, considering. He wasn't expecting this probably 2 weeks ago, even.
Yeah, guys, I'm going to ask you this question. You can both give me an answer. Spike, I'll start with you. If James Conner is incredibly average week 1, what does that mean for the Steelers? Are they in panic mode? Because they can't do anything. It's too late to negotiate the franchise tag anymore. He either signs it and reports, or he sits, I believe it's 10 weeks, and then he automatically becomes a free agent. So the question is one, is Bell willing to risk long-term sitting out 10 weeks and then I guess being able to, immediately sign with a team, or, at some point does somebody get to him and maybe he shows up? It's kind of a weird situation.
Yeah, it is a little strange. I think cooler heads will prevail, and we won't get to that point. I think this is just Bell flexing a little muscle plus sitting out. It's kind of like the Urban Meyer situation. Like, he's sitting out a game he doesn't think is going to matter, and that he doesn't think that he is going to, he's not the make or break player in this game. So I think it'll get to that, but I also think for Pittsburgh's sake that they're not going to panic either, because, even though the NFL doesn't typically have the blockbuster type trades that we see in the NBA or Major League Baseball, trades still exist, and if Pittsburgh were so inclined, they could always go out and try to get another running back from another team and try to bring them in mid-season.
Fair enough. I have to agree. I think that there's no sweat with this one. I think Pittsburgh still wins this game at 10 points around that area. So I think they'll cover the 4 points that's currently. And I'm hoping that thing just keeps going down as well. So may wait on it, may not. Let's see what kind of happens, because if the Sharps like Pittsburgh, they'll be late movement right before the game. So 4 might be as good as it gets, maybe 3.5. So another interesting game. I kind of like this one. I'll be taking the rubber band off for this one on Sunday. It's Cincinnati is currently across the board. It's Cincinnati versus the Indianapolis Colts. I've got 3 across the board consensus. Games in Indianapolis, the return of Andrew Luck, and versus the ageless wonder who keeps continuing to return, Marvin Lewis's Bengals. My initial thoughts are on this one. It's going to be a very bad game. Not a badly not bad to watch. It's just I think that both of these teams are middle of the road talented, and you've got a quarterback who hasn't played in almost 2 years, who's going to be rusty. I mean, there's no doubt about that. He hasn't played much in the preseason, and when he hasn't looked the greatest either. It's going to be some rusty football, I think, to open up this one. What do you think, Token?
Yeah, I mean, talk about a lucky start for Luck. I mean, playing the Bengals week 1, I mean,
no
to
pun intended.
kind of chip off some of the rest. Yeah. I mean, to face kind of a mediocre team at best in my mind. I mean, he can make it. I would say they're mediocre-ish.
Okay.
At best. I mean, this game gives him some potential to make some mistakes and ease into it a little easier than it would be if he was facing like Pittsburgh, New England, the Rams, or one of those kind of caliber teams.
Fair enough. I mean, if there's one guy who hasn't shown the same love for Andrew Luck as I have, it's Spike. So I'll let Spike kind of get ready for this one, because you're going to see, Luck coming back against the Red Rider. And what are your thoughts on this game? Because to me, it seems like it's going to be some tough football to watch.
If you put a gun to my head and made me bet on this game, I would fill out my will and say, all right, pull the trigger, because I'm not touching this goddamn mess for the life of me. I don't think I have ever handicapped a Cincinnati game properly, and I am so biased against Andrew Luck because I think he's probably top 5 most overrated players that we've seen, just because he can't stay on the goddamn field. So I am staying the hell away from this one.
That being said, you like the over.
What is the total on that? I didn't actually see that line. I wasn't paying attention.
Let's see. Total on that one is 48.
Jeez, that's
48 pretty high. Yeah, that does seem high. If I do have to put money on this, I lean towards the under, but I'm going to keep the wallet closed on this one.
Yeah, that's a tough number, because you got to figure, you look at 2 offenses who are average, but 2 defenses who are bad. So, because there's no perfect for Cincinnati. He's suspended for the first 4 games, which seems like a yearly tradition for him. But yeah, that's a kind of a tough number, because at some point, the offenses could be slightly better than the bad defenses, and we could see a shootout, in the 50s. But at the same time, we could see bad offenses who just can't get the ball down the field. So that's a number I'd probably stay away from as well. Token, if you had to, no gun to your head, if you're putting a pick on this one, I told you I'm already coming with a bet on this one this Sunday.
if I had to pick this one, and I wouldn't open up my wallet on this one, fuck it, give me Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. All right. Well, I didn't see that one coming, considering you just said Luck had an easy game to start off.
Well, an easy game to ease into. I mean, it's not what will he win it or not. I mean, it's a good situation for him to come back into, but I mean, whether he
sure
goes well or not, I mean,
mediocre offensive line going up against Carlos Dunlap and Geno Atkins, who both got paid and are top flight defensive guys. Yeah. But I'm with you. I think Cincinnati covers the 3. I'm actually betting them outright. I think Cincinnati's going to win this game. So that's where I'm sticking my money on that one. Tennessee and Miami in Hard Rock Stadium down in Miami, Florida. Tennessee is a 1.5 point road favorite at this point. I expect line movement in this game. I'm just not sure which way it's going to go. So I will, with that being said, I'll kind of let you guys, Spike, I'll let you start, kind of take over your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, this is another one where I am not as averse to betting on this one as I am on Indy and Cincinnati. Neither of these teams kind of thrill me. Neither of these teams fill me with a ton of confidence. That being said, just looking at, most recent bodies of work, Tennessee has looked better in all 3 aspects of the game. Even with Miami playing at home, I'm still not super comfortable taking them against a playoff team. I'll take Tennessee minus the 1.5.
All right.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with Spike on that. I would probably hit it right now because I have a feeling it's going to move closer to 3, if not right at that 3 number mark. I think one key player to watch on this game, and that's Miami wide receiver, is Amendola. Whether he can fight through that Tennessee defense or not.
Is he going to get on the field, though? That's the question.
Yeah.
He's staring up at 3 guys, Devontae Parker, Kenny Stills, and Albert Wilson. I don't know if he's going to get too many reps on the field unless somehow he's developed a big connection with Tannehill at this point. I mean, I'm sure that he has, a lot of knowledge, to impart on this team, but I don't see him getting on the field too much this Sunday.
Okay.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to fade both of you guys because I'm on the Fins this week. 1.5 seems like a very strange number to me because they're basically saying that on a neutral site, the Texans, not the Texans, the Titans should be a 4.5 point favorite. Well, at this point, the weather's not too hot, in Miami, so it's really, it's not the situation where Miami really has an advantage by playing in 90-degree weather, at this point. It's actually, temperature's supposed to be relatively good for game time. I think Tannehill has something to prove. I think everything kind of went right for Tennessee last year, with Deshaun Watson going down, with Andrew Luck not playing. They weren't able to beat the Jaguars, but they were able to do just enough, to sneak into the playoffs. They had a really good game against Kansas City, we know that, but a lot of things, again, the pass to Marcus Mariota, everything kind of had to go right, and they came crashing back down to earth against New England in that divisional playoff game. I think the Fins are better. I think Kenyon Drake's going to have a big game down, and I think the fans are going to be into it, if they show up by the third quarter. I think the Fins are going to win outright, and I'd play the under 45 on that game because I think both defenses are pretty good. Tennessee's defense is really good, so I'm not going to, try to hide behind that. But I think Miami can win this game 20-14, somewhere in that realm.
Fair enough.
Let's move on. We've got the Nathan Peterman experiment for the Buffalo Bills heading to Baltimore, a 7.5 point Baltimore favorite. This game, to me, feels kind of like the game Spike talked about with Cincinnati and Indy. I hate the line both ways, and really, I'm not going to watch it. And if you have to put a gun to my head, I probably would write my will and tell you to pull the trigger. I don't want to touch this game at all. I'll make a pick for pick purposes, but I'll let you guys start with this one.
So it's like, I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate your sacrifice there. I mean, I'm obviously not sold either way. I think the question is going to be, can, what's his name? Peterman. Is it Peterman or Peterson? Peterman.
Nathan Peterman.
If Peterman can stay under 4 interceptions, I think this game stays relatively close. I'm not touching the line either way. I'm actually looking at the total. I kind of like the under 40.5. These are, Flacco's greatest offensive weapon is defensive pass interference calls, and Peterman can't keep Buffalo on the field, even with LaShawn McCoy. But all he does is help to chew up the clock to keep the score down. So I think I'm not going to touch either side of this, but I think I like the under 40.5.
Saying both defenses can't score. What do you think, Token? Or both offenses, excuse me.
Oh, absolutely. I absolutely agree with Spike on that statement. I do believe in both defenses can keep offenses off the field and not put up many points. I think it'll be a close game. If I touch this game, I think I lean towards Baltimore, though. I think they're just slightly better enough to get the job done.
That's fair enough. Just looking at this game at face value, I believe the NFL is a big fan of creating storylines, and I understand that some people may think that the games are a little bit of a soap opera. I think the first game, I'm going to come out and say Buffalo beats Baltimore, creating the storyline that it's time for Joe Flacco to be benched and put one of these other guys, Robert Griffin or Lamar Jackson, in, which is way too premature. But, when has the NFL not had shock value? And I think Buffalo and Peterman come out in a very ugly manner, come out and beat the Baltimore Ravens, creating drama in Baltimore in Week 1, setting them behind the 8 ball at 0-1 in that AFC North, which everybody believes the Steelers are going to run away with. So that's my face value, no research, more of a TV guide channel kind of soap opera thing.
Soap opera.
Yeah, so that's where I'm going with that one. Still won't watch it, but that's where I'm going with that one. All right.
Fair enough.
We've got I don't want to say the game of the week, but it just might be, given all the trash talk Jalen Ramsey has said this offseason. I'm pretty sure a lot of viewers and a lot of eyeballs are going to watch, either hoping he eats his words and gets torched by Odell Beckham, or hoping that he can live up to it. Whichever side you sit on, either way, it's probably going to be one of the more entertaining games a la Odell, and I believe it was Josh Norman a couple years ago. I don't know if you guys remember that Giants-Carolina game and then when he was with the Redskins, obviously. But the line consensus across the board is 3. You can find it for 3.5 in some spots in favor of Jacksonville. Jacksonville as a road favorite with the 3 kind of worries me a little bit. Home dogs, especially in games where they can make a statement, tend to have some positive, or tend to have some good luck in some of these spots. But, Spike, what side are you on here?
Well, this is, I'm going to do just a slight bit of history here. I remember back, I think it was 2005 or 2006, the Patriots beat the Chargers in the playoffs, and LaDainian Tomlinson went to the podium and basically said the better team didn't win, and took the time after the loss to trash the Patriots. We saw kind of the same thing out of, what's his name, Jalen there, the same guy that's been running his mouth basically this entire preseason, about his ability to cover OBJ, knowing that the Patriots just beat these Jaguars in the playoffs this past year. So I would love to see the Jaguars get shut up. I just don't think it's possible. I don't think, I think we're seeing the last of Eli. I think we're seeing the last of a even mediocre, good Giants team. I think Jacksonville can run them over. Taking the -3, -3.5 to me is just no sweat whatsoever.
Token.
Yeah, Spike, I absolutely agree with that. The only thing that worries me is Barkley, whether he can run over Jacksonville's defense, but I don't see that happening week 1. So,
Well, that's what I was going to ask, is really, because obviously we're talking about, you're talking about the firepower, and, obviously it all goes with Eli Manning, but, between OBJ, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, and Saquon Barkley, I mean, the guy's got enough firepower, it all really rides on him, but he's got enough firepower to really keep this team in the game. I kind of like the total in this one. The total right now sits at 43. I like the over in this game. To me, my main themes, with the NFL betting is I think the AFC South was completely skewed last year. I'm not saying the Jaguars were a bad team. I'm just saying they got a lot of benefits and a lot of breaks. They played a fourth place schedule last year. Deshaun went out. Andrew Luck didn't play. There was a lot of breaks for the AFC South teams that made the playoffs this year. So I don't think they're as good as advertised, and that includes that defense. So I'm going to go ahead and lay the Giants with the points. I'm not ballsy enough to take the money line, but I like the home dog right here in front of a crowd who's ready to see OBJ back, who missed most of the year, and they're ready to see their new toy in Saquon Barkley. Plus, Pat Shurmur's offense was pretty good in Minnesota last year, if I recall correctly. So I like the home dog here, and wouldn't be shocked if there was an outright win. So I'll take the 3 points in that spot.
Interesting.
All right, so we got Kansas City, we got the Chargers in the soccer field that's known as StubHub Center. The Chargers are the darlings of the AFC West right now, with the other three teams kind of, I wouldn't say turmoil. They're kind of they got question marks right now. Let's start with Kansas City and LA. Phillip Rivers is obviously the veteran of this division in the quarterback position, which you have Pat Mahomes, who is essentially a rookie at this point, even though he does have a year under his belt with no real on the field experience. Initial thoughts, basically, Token, on 3.5 is across the board in favor of the Chargers.
Well, I like that line so much. I would take the Chargers all day on that. I don't think Kansas City's well enough with Mahomes, even though they still have Kareem Hunt. I don't see them getting the job done to even cover the spread. So I think the Chargers all around are more of a dominant team. They win this game by a touchdown. I'm guessing like a 24-17 kind of score game.
Fair enough. Spike?
Well, going back to my last comments about how Tomlinson was a crybaby after the playoffs, and really I haven't looked at or cheered for the Chargers ever since. In fact, I think that they've been incredibly overrated. I still haven't figured out how Norv Turner kept his job for so long. For a while, I thought he had pictures of the team owner in the shower with like a 10-year-old boy pulling a Jerry Sandusky. But okay. the only thing I see here, and as much as I hate to cheer for the Chargers, I have no idea how Kansas City can win this game, not with Mahomes as quarterback. I do not see a scenario where they can pull it out. And I like Token's comment about the Chargers winning by a touchdown.
Fair enough. I think we're all finally in consensus on one. I think the Chargers are the better team offensively and defensively. I think Kansas City lost a lot on defense as far as up the middle. Derek Johnson's gone. Some of their guys up front aren't what they used to be, and the only real, star or good player of quality is Eric Berry, and he plays in the secondary. So I think by the time Melvin Gordon meets Eric Berry, he's going to have 7-8 yards a carry. I think Melvin Gordon's going to have a good game. Phillip Rivers isn't going to have to do too much here in this spot, and the Chargers defense is definitely going to, I think, either control. They're going to try to control Kareem Hunt and make Pat Mahomes beat him, which, his arm is good. I just don't know if he can do that necessarily in his first, technically second official start. So yeah, I think we're all leaning Chargers here. The 3.5 is a scary one because the Chargers to me, when I bet, are kind of like what you were talking about earlier, Spike. They're kind of like my Jay Cutler. I could never figure out which side of Jay Cutler to be on when betting at that point, so I always chose wrong. That hook right there really kind of throws me for a loop because I can see the Chargers kicking a game-winning field goal and playing down to their opponent at this point. So it'll be an interesting one to see. I'm going to roll the Chargers with 3.5 too. Hopefully maybe it'll come down. I'll feel a little better if I can catch it at 3. So it'll be an interesting one to see. So let's look at the next game. We have Dallas and Carolina. I think this is going to be another one with a lot of eyeballs on it because Dallas is, well, Dallas, they're the Dallas Cowboys. You either love them or you hate them, and either way you're going to watch. And you have Cam Newton with the Carolina Panthers with some new toys to play with in DJ Moore and CJ Anderson in the backfield. Carolina currently across the board is a 3-point favorite, and 2.5 in some spots you can find them. But initial thoughts, games in Carolina.
In this matchup, I like Dallas, I think. So, with Prescott being on his third year now, same with Zeke, I think they get enough out of this, and they win by touchdown as well in this matchup. I don't think Carolina has improved enough to be like the Carolina that won the Super Bowl a couple years ago.
Wow, Dallas by a touchdown. I didn't think I'd hear that. I see that.
I hate Dallas, and I'm leaning towards Dallas.
Wow. Okay. I think I'm fading token on this one. I think Carolina's defense is still strong enough up the middle that they can give Zeke and Dak problems all game, forcing Dak to throw to the outside, which I'm still not 100% sure he can do. I think Dallas's secondary couldn't catch a cold, and I don't think they can cover anybody. So I think Carolina -3, especially at home. This line makes a lot of sense to me. I'm going with the Panthers.
Oh, so I got to jump on one of your two sides here. I thought actually you both would go with. I thought you both go with Dallas on that one side. I've kind of, this has been the weird one for me today. Looking at the last couple of days studying these lines. My initial thoughts, because William Hill has them at 2.5. My initial thoughts was Carolina by a field goal before I even saw the line. So naturally, I thought, obviously if I can catch it at 2.5, that's great. I think I'm going to roll with that exact, score. I don't know the exact score, but I'm saying I think it's a 3-point difference. So grabbing the 2.5 at William Hill hopefully will be beneficial for me. So yeah, I'm going to roll with Carolina as well. The 3 across the board, I'll probably stay away from it, but if I can find it still at William Hill for 2.5, I'm jumping on it. Seattle and Denver is another game that be an interesting one. I mean, everybody's talking about how Seattle is, in disarray with basically, the only thing really you hear out of Seattle is Richard Sherman, who's in San Francisco, who can't just stop talking. It seems like Russ, Pete Carroll, and what's left of that defense has quietly gone to work, to basically revamp themselves. I mean, Russell Wilson is an MVP candidate year in and year out from this point forward for the next 5 years. I think he's that good. The line is 3. Denver's the favorite at home, which essentially basically means this would be a pick'em game anywhere else other than Seattle and Denver at that point. Initial thoughts, I'll take this one. I think I'm going to take Seattle outright. I'm taking the rubber band off for this one, and I'm going to make that bet. Seattle wins this game, so I'll skip the 3 points. Just give me a straight outright bet.
Wow.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised, especially given how good Denver's defense is at home. And I know that Seattle's kind of a mess, like you said. I think I don't know that Denver has their franchise quarterback. Like, this isn't Elway or Peyton Manning again, but I think Case Keenum is probably good enough to get him over the hump. I'll take Denver -3.
So I have to agree with one of you guys now. I guess I agree with Spike on this one. I think Denver's defense at home is definitely one of the top 3 home defenses in my mind. It's just hard for me to buy Seattle right now. I don't think their offensive line has improved that much. It has improved in my mind a little, but the worrisome part of me is, how can Russell Wilson do it again and again and again with virtually not too many weapons
because
and stay healthy?
Because he's the 3rd best quarterback in the league right now.
Fair enough. Fair statement. I would not disagree with that.
I think he operates an offense similar to the way Aaron Rodgers does. He takes what's given to him. He doesn't try to get crazy. And when he needs to, he takes matters into his own hands. And, well, again, I mean,
he moves chains and
I think he's top 3 quarterback in the league right now. And I think for the next 5 years, he's a perennial, serious candidate for MVP every week, especially last year. I mean, obviously Carson Wentz should have won it had he not gone down. And as much as I like Brady, I think Russell Wilson, I mean, I looked at a stat yesterday. Russell Wilson contributed 97% of his team's offensive touchdowns. That's no running game right there. I mean, that's incredible. And I don't think his running game got that much better, even though they have Chris Carson, who's supposed to be the lead back. And then whenever Rashad Penny decides he wants to have a Slim Fast instead of a pizza for dinner, he'll be in the thick of things as well. Yeah, I'll let you guys go with Denver. I'll circle this one for when we talk Sunday on. Hopefully, I'll have an "I told you so" on this point, but it's going to be a good. That's going to be a good game. The reason I like Seattle in this game is because I think Case Keenum is more a product of the first 6 years. I think he was in the league more so than the last year he was in the league. As far as last year, so I think his talent leans more towards regressing back to the mean. I think he played exceptionally well last year, and I'm not sure he's worth the contract he got in Denver. And all I really need for him is just to be the mediocre quarterback for 1 week right now. So I'm going to take Seattle to win that game. I think that a lot of people are fading Seattle. Well, case in point, you two are. I think a lot of people are fading Seattle, and I think a lot of people think that Seattle is basically done, and especially since they're in a tough division. So I'll take them for 1 week right now to win the game. Washington and Arizona. Game pretty much is a pick 'em. You can get them -1, Arizona in some spots. So I will start with Token, and you have Sam Bradford versus Alex Smith in Arizona. Cardinals are a 1-point favorite.
Yes, that's if Bradford could stay healthy and play at least a full game.
I think he'll play a full game.
I don't know. I heard a lot of shit talking when Arizona signed Bradford, and that ambulances were heard throughout the entire state.
Yeah, actually, I think
when he got signed,
I think he broke his wrist signing the contract. So yeah, that might be.
The interesting part of this matchup to me is Adrian Peterson. How much of an impact he can make for Washington.
That's fair. Is zero an option?
0 is an option, but I think he does more than that. I like Washington in the spot, even on the road. I think Alex Smith.
Over under 45 yards for Adrian Peterson in week 1.
I'll take the over.
I'll book that one. I'll take the under 45 yards.
For 20?
Sure.
Okay. You got it.
All right, so you like Washington. Spike, what's up?
I've been going back and forth on this game all day, and it's kind of been driving me crazy because I don't know what to make of Washington. I don't know what to make of Arizona. I think Arizona is okay with Sam Bradford, but I think Washington is just a hair better. Plus, I think they have to play for Gruden's job. I think, we talked about this on a previous podcast where we talked about coaches on the hot seat. I think Gruden has probably the shortest leash out of anybody right now, even with the Alex Smith experiment coming to town. The fact that Geis is out is really hurting Washington, so I kind of keep going back and forth between Arizona and this. If I have to put money on this game, I might just flip a coin. I really think it's that close. I think the odds makers have it exactly right at a pick 'em, or, -1 for Arizona, depending on where you go. I can't see the right way to go, so give me Larry Fitzgerald in Arizona. I'll take them.
Give me heads or tails, basically.
Yeah, that's exact. I literally flipped a coin while I was doing that too. So, yeah, I'll take Arizona.
I did not flip a coin. I've already bet this one. This is another one I took the strap off for. I took Arizona when it was a pick 'em. I am not one who's big on the Sam Bradford bandwagon, but when he does play, he's actually a pretty decent quarterback. I think he's got enough weapons. David Johnson coming back is going to be a huge boost, much more than Adrian Peterson. You can bet on that. He's a guy. He's got to be one of the best safety blankets for a guy who has to dump the ball off as soon as possible. Otherwise, he breaks 3 ACLs. So I'm going to take Arizona in this spot. Basically, like you said, I think they're the better team. They don't have the better quarterback. I think Alex Smith is the better quarterback, but I think overall the defense is better in Arizona. The home field advantage obviously is a big factor. And I think this game is as close as the spread will indicate. I think it's a 2 to 3 point victory for Arizona, somewhere in the around. I like the under as well. I think somewhere around 17-14 or 21-17 in that spot. So it's not going to be too much of a crazy blowout. I think the odds makers got it right. It will be a close game. It could legitimately go either way on a couple of plays. I know I just used a line out of Token Tony's playbook, but this is one game, like you said, you literally just sat there and went heads or tails. So it's one of those games. Throw a dart at the wall, put 2 bowls out for your dog and see which food he likes the best. You could do anything you want at this point. I don't think it's a bad pick either way. I went with Arizona strictly for David Johnson and the home field advantage, and I think they have the better defense. So, all right, we're moving to Sunday night game. We have Chicago, who just acquired Khalil Mack, who is scheduled to play. Green Bay in Green Bay is a 7.5 point favorite. That line really didn't move, even though Khalil Mack, has been announced that he's probably going to play at this point. So, any thoughts initially? The total is, what did we say? The total is 47.5 across the board. Do we like Rodgers, or what are we thinking there, Spike?
Green Bay in a sleeper. I'm not even going to bother with this one.
Wow.
Wow, I'm kind of surprised by that. I like the Bears plus the points. I think they make it relatively a closer game than the spread indicates. Whether it's a field goal or touchdown kind of game, I think the Packers win. But the Bears defense close, and Trubisky has a all-right game at Lambeau.
Trubisky has an all-right game at Lambeau. That's what I like to hear. I'm high on Trubisky. Not necessarily specifically him, but I'm high on his ability to be a game manager for this season, because I think with Jordan Howard, Tarek Cohen, a good offensive line, a very good defense now improved by the addition of Khalil Mack, a new coach who, is not John Fox. All Mitch Trubisky has to do, I think, is play B- level football, and I think this team is going to be really good. Just not this week. I agree with Spike. I think it's 44-24. I think the Packers are going to come out, and Rodgers is going to have a little party in Lambeau. I think it's a big blowout, but I do think Chicago is going to be a good team this year. Just it's not going to happen this week. So I'll take Green Bay with the 7.5 points, and I'll play the over too if I feel I need to chase money after Sunday.
Fair enough.
All right, well, we'll come to Token Tony. I'll let you start this off because it's your boys. The Detroit Lions are opening up on Monday night against the Jets. I feel like they did this like a couple years ago, and no one watched this exact same game.
I was actually at that game.
Oh, well, okay, one person watched this game. Detroit open. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was a Monday night game, I guess. I believe it was against either the Jets or the Vikings. It was one of those two teams, I remember.
It was definitely the Jets. I think I remember watching it like, man, what am I doing? I could think
it was relatively a close game, I think. And I think the Lions won by a touchdown.
They did.
If I'm not mistaken.
Well, they're favored by 6.5 across the board here. Sam Darnold is getting the start. Realistically, I mean, after Sam Darnold was named the starter, the line did not move at all. So I guess they're thinking no matter who the Jets threw out there, the Lions should realistically
6.5 is the right line. Yeah,
realistically win this by a touchdown at this point. Yeah. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I think Lions won by exactly a touchdown. I didn't feel it at 7, but 6.5, I kind of like it. So I'll lay the favorite home on a primetime game in Detroit. Hopefully people don't blow out their brains by halftime, and Stafford could get the job done. So,
Spike.
You know what's more interesting to me than this game?
The WNBA.
I currently have 11 legal pads in my office, and I have 23 pads of Post-it notes in my office. That's counting those items to me is more interesting than the Jets on a Monday night game. Just why is the NFL subjecting us to this nonsense?
I believe you have my
especially against the Lions.
I believe you have my stapler.
Yeah, give me what are the Lions minus. Yeah, who gives a shit? Yeah, Lions. I don't care.
Yeah, Lions. I don't care. I'm on the Lions. I'm on the Lions wagon here too. I think the Jets. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think the Lions win by 10 points. So take that for what you will.
Fair enough.
All right, we got the last game Monday night, the second Monday night game. We have the LA Rams traveling to Oakland, and LA is a 4-point road favorite at this point. This feels like a David and Goliath matchup, but we might have some difference of opinions on these. So, Spike, I'll let you start.
I've been pretty high on the Raiders the last couple of years. Last year, not so much, but the year before, and even the year before that, I really, really liked what Oakland was putting together. Now, not so much. I think the Rams are just the better team. I don't think this feels like a David and Goliath game. I think this is a David versus Goliath game. I think this is just the Rams are significantly better. You know, I don't know that Oakland has enough, especially losing Khalil Mack, to do anything to stop LA. I got to take the Rams in this one.
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel like it's a David versus Goliath game. I believe the Rams win by more than a touchdown, if not 2 touchdowns. I believe with improvements on the Rams defense, they force Oakland to allow 3 and outs, if not short drives. And Goff and Gurley just tear up the clock, tear up the field, and just steamroll in Oakland.
Tear up the quad? Are they going streaking or something?
Going streaking? No, the clock.
Oh,
tear up the clock in the field.
I said tear up the quad. I'm like, all right, cool, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, we're going streaking, yeah.
All right, well, it sounds like we are going to have a different opinion. I think the Rams are going to have a tough time in Oakland. I understand that, a lot of people think that this whole thing is in disarray. I think I really don't have an exact explanation for this. The consensus money is just being poured in on LA. And unless I won't bet this game, I have no interest in it, but I feel like unless the books really come clean house on Sunday, which is possible, they may need this game, as more than they think, because right now, according to covers, the public money is coming 83% on the LA Rams at this point. So,
Jesus,
I'm surprised it's not higher. Actually, I thought you were going to say like 87% to 90%.
Yeah, so I mean, it could even go higher at this point. You're not really ever sure. 4 points just seems like a weird number to me. Basically, what they're saying is that LA is a touchdown favorite, which basically what you're saying, Token, is, LA is so much more flashier on offense. All the acquisitions they had on defense, they should be almost, based on Oakland's offseason and LA's offseason, I feel like this number leans more towards double digits. Crickets.
Yeah. No, yeah.
So for it to
I think you're kind of on that.
For it to only be 4, just something seems weird about it. And whenever I feel like there's something weird about it, I'll jump on the side that really is, I like to fade the public in a line that seems weird to me, which, who knows, I could be the public at that point. So that's my spot. I think the Raiders are going to cover. I think it's going to be a field goal game. I think Greg the Leg is going to have to kick a game winner in Oakland to win by 2 or 3 points. So, that'll be my spot right there. So, Well,
Fair enough.
that is going to wrap up our picks for the NFL. We definitely appreciate you tuning in, and we will see you with a podcast. What are we on, Tuesdays? I forget, on 12 Ounce Sports Radio. I think we're on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. This show will air every Saturday. You'll hear us at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. You can give us, or we can give you our NFL and NCAA picks each week. You can fail them. You can tail them or fade them. You can tail them or fade them. Either way, the choice is yours. For Spike, for Token Tony, I am Aaron. We appreciate you listening. We are out.